If you or anyone around you are affected by the subjects of today's podcast, you can reach out to get help, advice, or support from our charity partners, Women's Aid, at womensaid.org.uk, or the Yorkshire-based organisation IDAS at idas.org.uk. You can also find these links and reach out to us directly via our website, takebackthebeat.co.uk, or email us at takebackthebeattour@gmail.com. That's takebackthebeattour@gmail.com.
Take back the beat.
Hello.
Hello there, my darling.
Hello. Welcome to Take Back the Beat.
Ooh. Voice notes? Question mark? Voice notes?
You know, my mum went to me the other day. She's like, "What do you even say?" And I was like, "Voice notes. Voice notes." But in various
Really?
keys.
Is it that hard to hear?
I think it's just because we have the best time doing it. I don't know.
Because we're idiots and we just say whatever. That's why.
Because we sing in tune for a living, you know.
Hey.
Live that life.
Well, do you know the good thing about that is, though, at least that when people hear us, they'll be quite shocked because they'll be like, oh, they can sing.
Do you know what? It's better to be that way round rather than people see us live and go, oh, I don't
Oh, they sing like they do on the podcast.
Can you imagine?
We have to do a mashup, by the way, of Take Back the Beat voice notes. If anybody's listening out there and wants to do like a little mashup of all our versions, do a remix of our intro. I mean, I don't think we've got hardcore fans yet, but for future reference, somebody please do that.
Yeah, I'm here for that.
Yeah.
Right, we've got an amazing guest today, so we are going to try and get straight on because we've only heard snippets of this incredible woman's story, and I am already quite nervous.
Yeah, I've got a feeling this is going to be a heavy one.
But you know.
Lots of trigger warnings for those. I know we've already given it in the intro, but just a heads up, you know, get a brew, sit down, have a little, you know, don't just put this on in the background if you like cleaning like I do with podcasts, because this one's definitely a heavy one.
Yes.
But yeah.
Obviously, like we said, there is a trigger warning thing at the beginning. I know our socials, when this episode comes out, we will do a thing, but there is trigger warnings of rape, child abuse, and domestic violence in today's episode. So bear with us.
Suicide as well. So
there's some big triggers today. So we're nervous. We have cups of tea, but she's incredible. So before we get onto that,
yes, my darling,
Farah, how on a scale of 0 to a whole tub of Biscoff are you feeling this week?
No comment. Next question.
Are we there yet?
I feel like I've had to split myself into 7 Farahs this week.
You've been ridiculous. Yes, you have. Yes.
I can't cope. I've taken on far too much.
Yes, she has.
I'm possibly on the verge of a mental breakdown. No. Yes. I've just taken on too much, basically. This month I've clocked 22 shows, including flyouts, including...
Which, those who don't know, that means like just flying somewhere, doing a gig and then flying home.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
They're absolutely mental, sound great on paper, and then you realise how tired you are. Yeah.
But I'm very much like, I did a gig one night and then drove to the airport and then got on a plane for a gig the next day, then flew back and then done another gig. So it's very much just like, and all the travelling, obviously, I don't have a driver.
Knackered.
So I do all the travelling. Some of the places have PA, some don't, so I have to set up. So I've taken on a lot this month. So I don't know how to answer the Biscoff.
Okay.
I've not had time to eat Biscoff. There you go. There's your answer.
Oh, that's
even if I wanted it, I couldn't. Although I say that right now, I'm disgusted in myself because I bought a bag of cashew nuts for £3. M&S. Why?
Who do you think you are?
Yeah, but I'm angry at myself. I was like, I'll treat myself, and then I was like, who pays £3 for a bag of nuts? I'm fuming.
But they are
nice.
M&S nuts.
They're very nice. They're very nice. So
I'm more judging you that it's not a Percy Pig bag. It's more like semi-healthy.
Listen, your girl needs you. I need me energy. But so that's me. So I haven't had time for Biscoff. On a scale of 1 to a full jar of Biscoff, how are you this week?
Do you know what? I had a Biscoff Easter egg that was banging.
Oh my God, you did. You sent
well
that.
done, Biscoff. I did. I sent it in the group because I was like, guys, dreams have been answered. That was magical. But in all honesty, I don't need Biscoff this week. I've been high as a cloud. I've had a really, really good week. It's been, obviously I went on holiday with my family, which was amazing. Came home, felt really refreshed. And then...
she didn't take me with her, if anybody's asking. So
no, I spend far too much time with this woman.
Rude.
It's true. Yeah, it was really, and like my episode came out while I was on holiday, and I was absolutely terrified. Mainly, do you know what it was? It was knowing my mum would hear it, knowing my boyfriend would hear it, and Aidan knows basically everything in dribs and drabs.
Yeah,
but having. Like, I listened to it to listen through and check that all the edits were okay. We didn't really edit much, but like there was no coughing and that sort of stuff. And I was like, oh, okay. And I called my mum and I was like, right, just I don't know if you want to wait to go back from holiday or whatever. And she listened to it while we were on holiday, and she came and gave me a massive hug the next day and was just like, I understand more. And I was like, oh, okay. She's like little things that you used to do that I just got angry about and I didn't know why, and now I know, and I understand. And I was like, oh, that's a great thing. And then I was sat on the beach and I just got this voice note from Aidan that when I told you I just broke down crying because he was just so amazing. Like he's
a little dreamboat, isn't he? We love him.
Yeah. And he just sent me this voice note that was just like, I'm so proud of you. And it was just like 30 seconds of him just being like, you're amazing. And I just sat on this beach and cried, and I was like, little shit.
No, you were like, yes, I am correct.
Yes, I am. Thank you, Walter. So that was amazing. And then just to keep absolutely gushing about my boyfriend, he went on as Jean Valjean, the lead in Les Mis on Monday.
He made Farah cry. We are not happy.
Yes.
Not
bless.
happy.
I can't believe literally Farah came from her gig, her fly out, drove to the hotel I was staying in with her suitcase, and I was like, babe, what are you doing? She's like, I've just landed and I've got to go back after the show, which is 3 hours long, PS, because I've got another gig tomorrow. And I was like, you are keen?
Yeah, but well, this is what we do.
We're family.
We're family.
Yeah.
That's
and he
my
loved
dad. By the way, I don't know if the listeners know this, but I call Nat. So this is weird because I call her my wife because this is definitely a commitment for life.
Relationship, yeah.
But she's also mum, and Aidan's my dad. So
Very
whenever
weird.
I stay with them, they just look at it. It's great. It's just like staying with mum and dad. It's wonderful.
It's brilliant. But yes,
but
he
yeah,
went on
so I
on
just
Monday.
call them that. But
Yes. And I cried from the second he walked on stage. I was not only unbelievably proud, but that man is just disgustingly talented.
oh, it's
Like,
sickening.
It's actually quite infuriating. How
It makes me want to vomit. It makes me go, why am I a singer? Why am I?
Who are you?
Who am I? I'm done.
Yeah, I'm like, bah.
I quit.
Yeah, so it's been an amazing week, actually. So, yeah, I'm in a really good place. You can
Yay.
see. So that's our Biscoff section. But without further ado, is that how you say it?
Without further ado. A Jew? No, I think it's a do. Without
a do.
further ado. Agadoo. Ooh.
Agadoo.
That's mine.
Anyway.
I'm tired. Let's go. Come on.
We're bringing on an amazing woman. She's also a singer.
Yes.
Is that how you know Rachel?
Yeah, just from
Through the circuits. And
through the circuit. I met her so many years ago. And
Love
then,
this.
like I said, you just sometimes click with people, obviously, have little connections. And it's not like we see each other all the time, but we've always stayed in touch. Like we like message on Facebook, and, you know, she's always been supportive of my stuff. And then I've just seen her on random shows and just been like, oh my God, hi. So yeah, she's a really wonderful woman, and I'm glad she's in my life.
Excited for this.
Yeah.
So yes, let's let Rachel in the room to tell her story. Here we
Here we go.
Woo.
Hi, everyone.
Hey, we're back.
Here she is, the wonderful Rachel Roberts.
Whoop, 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 whoop.
Yeah, so
Hello.
how are you doing today?
I'm not too bad. Bit wet, got bedraggled walking the dog in the rain, but apart from that, I'm good.
Good old English summer. There you go.
I know, I'm like,
isn't it just?
Is it not May? Like, what happened to the weather?
Apparently next week.
Oh, really?
Next week we're going to have a bit of a heat wave, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Guarantee, though,
Apparently so.
it will be on every day that I'm working, because that's always the case.
Well, obviously, why would it be on your day off?
Do you know what I mean?
Do you know what I mean? So, thank you, Rachel, so much for coming on and chatting to us. You're a dream.
That's okay. You're welcome. Hope it won't be a nightmare.
Oh, never.
No.
You guys know each other. You and Farah are friends.
Our friends, yes.
It's been a little while, hasn't it, love? It's been a little while since we've seen each other.
It has been a while since we've seen each other, but we've gigged together a lot in the past, and then obviously we had a little connection. We've stayed in touch for years, haven't we?
Yeah,
so
we have.
I love that.
Yeah. But then obviously Rachel reached out to me because I actually didn't know everything that you're about to discuss today.
No.
But I'm really glad that you did. Because again, it's nice to be able to talk about it. And like you said, just before we jumped on and pressed record, obviously we were all sat in the Zoom, and Rachel just kindly said, if it helps one person, because obviously it is going to be a little bit of a tough listen today, and subjects, that are hard to listen to. But Rachel is more than happy to share, which we are very grateful for.
Yeah.
We are.
Yay.
And it's a safe space full of love.
It is
Absolutely.
full of love.
Yeah. Indeed. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, in your own time, wherever you want to start, my darling, you just go ahead. And if you need to stop at any minute, let us know. And we're here. No problem. We're here.
Will do. Well, I suppose as I am a singer, I'll be like Julie Andrews, so I'll know Mary Poppins. Start at the very beginning.
Yes.
I love that reference.
It's a very good place to start.
It is indeed. It is.
I was born to my mum, obviously, in Blackpool back in 1971. And she was with a man who was my father, who I find very difficult to call him my father. Because he was mentally, physically, emotionally and sexually abusive.
Oh, shit.
He did hit my mum a number of times. In fact, the violence was two ways, I think, because when she was defending herself, she once took a knife to him in front of me. I think I was around about 3 years of age. And I'm still very scared of knives to this day. I still kind of, when I'm doing dinner, because I like to cook, but when I'm doing it, I'm always kind of nervous at holding the knives and stuff. It brings back my memories. I've still got a bit of a phobia of blood, even though I nursed when I was younger.
Wow.
I'm not very good around blood. I always get funny sensations seeing blood.
So that's a lot of trauma and triggers from the get-go, isn't it, for you?
And my mum had already been through an abusive relationship previously as well.
Oh, my God.
So, yeah, it was difficult. And I have sketchy memories of being young and being in Blackpool, but I do have memories.
Yeah.
We left, and my mum and I and my youngest brother went to live with my grandma and granddad in Stoke-on-Trent. So we had a pretty decent childhood after that, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
For many years, apart from when my dad was allowed to visit. And during these visits, he would be, if he could get me on his own, he would be abusive. He would touch me inappropriately.
Man. Oh, God.
And he had a drinking issue. He was an alcoholic. And I don't know whether I like the term alcoholic, because I now don't drink at all. Because it messes with my mental health. And I've discovered that during the last few years.
Right.
And whilst I wouldn't term myself an alcoholic, I would term myself an emotional drinker who binge drank when she felt emotional.
Yeah.
And it always destroyed my mental health completely and utterly for the week that followed.
Yeah, it seems to numb something for a minute, but it's always worse in the long run. No.
Sadly.
Yeah,
so
gotcha.
I now do not drink at all. I don't touch the stuff. I don't even have it for celebrations or anything.
Good for you.
Don't care who does it around me, as long as they're not abusive or, unkind towards other people. If they're just enjoying themselves and not hurting themselves or anybody else, haven't got a problem. My husband still has the odd drink. I don't stop anybody else, but I don't do it myself. But my father was an alcoholic. He was a serious drinker.
Yeah.
Right.
To the point where most times when he turned up, if he ever did turn up, when he said he was going to come and visit us, he would be drunk. And I could smell the alcohol on his breath. And it's still quite a strong trigger for me, is smelling beer on somebody's breath.
Yeah.
But we took a court injunction out against him when I was 17 because he actually turned up at... My mum met somebody else who was a lovely, lovely man who I do refer to as my dad, as my stepdad.
Oh, that's amazing.
And he turned up at the house unexpectedly and threatened to kill me and then kill himself.
Oh, my God.
And we had to call the police out. He was arrested and we got a court injunction out against him, stopped him from coming anywhere near me again. We all know that court injunctions sometimes don't stop people from still coming towards their intended victim, that they're stalking, basically. But it did stop him, and he did leave me alone after sending me a horrific letter that I still have, in which he blamed me.
What?
Yeah, he blamed me for everything. Blamed my mum. Blamed me.
But
had a
how?
pure hatred of women. Such a deep hatred of women.
Wow.
So I'm guessing he wasn't abusive towards your brother then?
He was mentally abusive more than anything. He used to taunt my youngest brother with, like, you're not a man. And it's like my youngest brother at the time was 15 when this happened. He was still a boy.
Full of hormones and no idea who you are.
And
very
never had any direction, really.
And those are not great things to say at that age.
Absolutely.
They settle well.
Yeah, they do. I mean, people always talk about what girls go through in an abusive household, but they forget what it does to boys as well.
Yeah.
And my eldest brother, who is... we've got the same dad but different mums. He was born before me and I didn't know about him until 5-6 years ago.
Oh wow.
Our birth father had been with his mum and he'd been abusive to his mum as well, and to my eldest sister and to him.
Wow.
And had left them abruptly to go to Blackpool, which is where he met my mum, who was she'd also left Stoke-on-Trent and she was working there.
I'm guessing she didn't know about his backstory.
No. But then I found out that she did know years later that he'd been in trouble back in Yorkshire, where he was from. It's a whole mess. And again, from talking to a lot of survivors, I've discovered that often there is this foggy, murky, messy background of people choosing what they think is the right decision for themselves or for their children, and then it not working out, And I think there's a lot of blaming and shaming, and I do not blame my mum in any way, shape or form. I blame him.
Yeah,
don't blame my mum.
Oh, no, it's him. Yeah,
blame my mum for other things.
Did your mum
at times, she didn't make great choices, and she could be a little bit of a narcissist who abused certainly me with her narcissistic abuse and emotional abuse.
Wow.
Wanting me to make the choices that she wanted me to make, and things like that, and quite often blaming me for certain things that clearly I wasn't to blame for. And when I went through my counselling last year for all of the abuse, I discovered that I actually was holding on to a lot of hurt from my mum.
Yeah.
But I've worked through that, but I don't blame her for the abuse that I suffered from him.
So
little bit.
Did mum know, so when you said, just to go back a little bit, that you moved to your grandparents?
Yeah.
Did she leave him, did you say? I don't know if I missed it.
She did.
She left
she
him.
did leave him.
Did you ever mention anything that was going on to her? Did she know?
Not
or have an
until I
inkling?
was much, much older.
Oh, okay, so
she never knew.
Okay.
We never discussed it. She wouldn't discuss it. She blanket would not discuss it.
Okay.
I did try to approach her about it once I was older, and she just shut me down completely. So, but she mentioned a few things, very strange things actually. She mentioned once to my sister and I've got a sister from, like, we've got the same mum but different dads.
Yeah, it's like
and we're
me.
very close, my sister and I.
Yeah.
And Mum had mentioned to both of us that she knew how abused children acted because she'd been with an abused child before. And we're like, well, who could that be? You know, it's like, how have you gotten so close to somebody to know how they act and everything? I thought, it can only be me. It was kind of an admittance that, you know, and I remember that we left Blackpool very abruptly.
Yeah.
And my dad wasn't. I knew this because I had a social worker. I do remember having a social worker. My dad was not supposed to be around me without supervision. Somebody was always there, apart from the fact when, you know, somebody would come out the room, or he once turned up at school when I was about 8 or 9. Just out of the blue, turned up outside the school. And in those days, the school would let a child go with whoever said they were there to pick up the child.
Yeah.
It wasn't
different
It
times.
wasn't
You know.
like it is now, yeah.
No, absolutely
They
not.
want your fingerprints now, which is good.
Which is great.
It's good. Yeah.
But I mean, I remember being over the moon that he was there because it proved to the other kids that I'd got a dad. Because back in the 70s, for you not to have a father was a bit of a stigma. You were treated differently. It's not like it is now. You know,
Yeah.
I mean...
Same happened to my mum. She was given up at birth, so she grew up in a home, and so she had the same sort of thing. Weirdly enough, actually, I was going to ask you about, you know, when you said you with the police and he was harassing you. I don't know if even you know this, Nat, but my mum suffered the same sort of thing. So my sister is we've got the same mum but different dads, and her dad has passed now, but obviously because he's not my dad, it's not my place to talk about on here until either of them are ready to come on and talk about it, which they do want to. But my mum struggled and had a first abusive relationship with my sister's dad, and he kidnapped Karen, my sister.
Oh my God.
He kidnapped her, and they had to get the police involved because he was threatening to do things and things like that. I don't think I've ever spoke about this, but again, it's not my place to say or to talk about. She will come on, but she did tell me that, you know, back. I mean, if that happened now, if someone to kidnap a child and you know, threats and things like that, it would be taken like seriously, as it should. But my mum did say back then it was like, well, that's her dad. It was very much like, well, that is her dad, and they wouldn't take those sort of things seriously. So, when you just said then, you know, getting that against him did stop him from coming near you. Do you think back then that the police were taking this sort of thing seriously as well? In
general, I remember Mum talking to me about her previous relationship, her marriage to my sisters and two of my older brother's dad, and she wasn't taken seriously when she was beaten, when she had violence from her first husband. She wasn't taken seriously, no, and she did mention it quite a few times. And I won't tell that side of the story because that's my sister's thing as well. It's a whole other story that is really for my sister to tell if she wanted to. So I won't go any further with that. But Mum wasn't taken seriously.
Right,
I don't know about whether she was taken seriously, whether she ever reported anything with my dad. I don't know. But that night that actually happened. It was my stepdad who rang the police, and they did take it seriously, I have to say.
Oh, good, good.
They did take it very, very seriously.
Going back to, I hope you don't mind me asking this. Like,
no.
You mentioned obviously the kind of sexual abuse as well.
Yeah.
What age roughly was that between?
First memory, I do remember being around about 3 years of age. I can't have been very old. I can't have been any older.
And when did that kind of stop?
Maybe 4. Well, it stopped when we moved away, obviously, until he would come and visit. And if he ever found an opportunity to be alone with me, he would touch me inappropriately.
You must have been terrified.
Don't particularly like men with beards, let's put it that way, because he had a big beard.
This is really random, but it's something I'm quite fascinated with. I've read quite a lot of books about the psychology that you get from that. Like, I've read a case before where a kid then associated that kind of love as worth, and then if someone didn't do that, and they had a weird relationship with their mum because their mum didn't do it, and they associate abuse with love. And have you found anything with partners since? Like,
completely and utterly, yeah. My dad was quite a rough and ready. He was a fighter.
Oh, God.
He was a singer himself. He loved singing.
Yeah.
And he had got a beautiful voice from what I remember. A really stunning voice. You know, I mean, full-blown opera he could sing.
Oh, wow.
He was wonderful in that terms. And for many years, I think I associated nice men with being weak.
I get that.
And also, regardless of the fact of what my dad did to me, I did love my dad. And I sought his attention and his love as a child. I clearly remember that. I clearly remember when we left, that I cried and cried and cried and cried. And for many years, I had a very, very unhealthy, toxic view of what love was.
Yeah. Well, you were so young. I mean,
crazy.
I mean, I knew it was young, but that took me back. I'm sorry that you went through that. But that's such a young age to, like you said, to define what love is, because you're not, your brain hasn't processed enough what that is to be able to differentiate the two. Do you know what I mean? So, that is, I can't imagine the struggles you've had since.
It screws like you said, up an awful lot.
It'll affect you from that day on.
When did you kind of know that it was wrong? Like, when did you kind of start realising what you've been through is a trauma? It's not what love is.
Not until quite a few years later, I think, because when I used to protest to my dad when I was younger, I remember he'd say, it's just love. It's just love. It can't be wrong. You know, and for a lot of time, I thought that maybe, and I'd look at like my friends with their dads, and part of me used to feel jealous because they were able to have time with their dads that I didn't have. But also, if they sat on their dad's knees and stuff, I'd start to feel sick but not know why, but also be envious. And now I've gotten older, it's like when I think about girls and their fathers in particular, I know boys go through abuse from their fathers as well. I'm not denigrating that at all or dismissing it. I can only speak from being a woman, you know,
absolutely,
who was a female child who went through it. I especially when we had our daughter, like my husband and I found it very, very difficult to kind of bathe her, to look at her when she was naked. I'd try to cover her up. I would be very, very aware of how my husband was with her, and I'd be constantly, you know, sort of watching, so to speak. And it made me feel really sick that I just couldn't relax around this relationship, which was actually pure and beautiful, which was how a father and daughter should be.
Yeah.
You know.
And that's amazing that you have found someone who has your back and I'm sure understands. Like, do you talk quite openly?
Oh. I've put him through hell. I've sent him to hell and back in the 25 years we've been together.
25 years, geez. Congratulations, that's amazing.
You've been through hell as well, and he understands that, you know.
I think when I sought counselling last year, I realised, because with lockdowns and everything, because with him working away, people who know me very well know that he works away for the bulk of the year. Mm-hmm. And he was locked down in Kuwait whilst we were all locked down here for some of the time. And we didn't see each other for nearly 5 months and things were going badly. And he said, I can't do this any longer. You know, I just don't know whether I can do this anymore. And we had a blip and it was awful and it was horrible. And then he came back and I quickly realised I got to sort out my issues, because if I didn't, I was going to lose him.
Yeah.
And so I started the counselling finally. Because I've always avoided it because I thought it's too painful to go into it all.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad I did it, because it's kind of saved us. Because now I know that it doesn't matter if you've gone through, it doesn't matter what you've gone through in your life. You cannot use it as an excuse.
No.
Or as a beating stick for somebody else. No. You can't. Doesn't matter.
You have to deal with it eventually, don't you? Because like you said, it's not only had that knock-on effect of... And I'd not even thought of that until you just said it. Like, it's obviously going to have an impact with every single man in your life.
Absolutely.
It's something's going to trigger you. But then for you to say about your children, like you're
course.
feeling awkward seeing your kids naked because you obviously you don't know what lies in your brain because you weren't taught. And I've never ever thought of anything like that because obviously I don't have children and I haven't been through what you have. But for it to affect what should be one of the happiest times of your life is like that bond with your child and the bathing and stuff like that. That's, you just don't realize what it does, do you? Like what?
No.
Oh, no. Man.
And I became a mum the first time around very, very quickly. Jacob was a complete surprise, bless him, with my first relationship and my first husband. And he's a blessing, a complete blessing. You know, I fell in love with him before he was even born. I was only 18 years of age when I was pregnant with him, 19 when I gave birth to him. But, you know,
my mum was when she had Karen as well. Yeah. Very, very similar to my mum. Like, listening to your story, it's very similar to my mum.
But he is a blessing. And, you know, I think the way that he's been raised, I mean, he's a millennial male, which is lovely. He's so caring and so aware of women's issues and stuff, you know.
Yes.
I'm very conscious.
Nice to hear,
You've raised him very well then.
Yeah.
And that's down to you.
He's raised himself to a certain extent as well at times, you know.
No, it's incredible.
He's got a good mum.
One thing I want to ask you actually, was it different raising your son and your daughter with your background? Like, did you find you were more protective of your daughter?
Absolutely. Yeah. Completely and utterly, yeah. It was very different. I mean, I was protective of both of them, obviously. I'm a mum. But course, it was very, very different, completely and utterly. Yeah. I actually, when I was expecting my son, I didn't, back in those days, you didn't really know. It was a bit of a guessing game. You couldn't go and have a scan or anything like that. It was there, you know. So when he was born, I was very relieved he was a boy.
Oh, really?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Wow.
And then when I was pregnant again, 9 years later, by this point I divorced my first husband, Jacob's father, and I was with my current husband. And we'd been trying for around about a year to have a baby, and in the end had to have a little bit of help. Finally got pregnant, and all the way through, I just felt like I desperately wanted a girl, but was very scared in case she was.
That makes sense.
And then when she came along, I was so massively happy that I got a girl, but also very, very scared. And as it was, as she's gotten older, I mean, she's now she went through a few changes as a young teenager, bless her. Again, that's her story, and I won't talk about that. But I was just so relieved to really have an education from her on how a healthy father-daughter relationship is, because they have a very healthy relationship. Lovely. It's beautiful, their relationship. They're very, very close. They're very loving towards each other. There is nothing, you know, toxic or tainted about it.
So has that helped you heal to kind of see like that's what
absolutely.
It should be like?
There's been some learning curves. There's been some massive learning curves from watching them together. And at times I've had to confront my own feelings and, you know, address how I've reacted to certain things, which has been not healthy, you know? Yeah. At the end of the day, it's not them with the issues, it's me. And whether those issues are my fault or not, it doesn't make any difference. They don't deserve my skewed thinking that I had being inflicted upon their relationship, and that is it.
What's terrifying is like your innocence was just robbed from you at such a young age. Yeah.
So it isn't your fault to...
Yeah, of course. God, it's not your fault. But the ripple effect of like this one person, this sorry to speak of your biological father this way, but this evil behaviour to take away your innocence, which has then ruled your life. Like it's something that's really taken a hold of you, and then you've passed on to your like adulthood. And it's amazing that you're getting help, and it's amazing you found this supportive bubble and you have this amazing relationship with your kids, but that's down to you being a strong person and fighting for that, because you could have used that as an excuse.
Yeah.
And you could have used what's happened to you to not be a nice person
for the rest of your life, and you haven't. That's the strength of you is incredible. Honestly.
I mean, is anyone the best person? Do you know what I mean? Anyone?
I've made some pretty big mistakes that if I could take back, I would. But I've never intentionally tried to hurt somebody. I've always tried to do my best.
Yeah.
But at times, I haven't, and that's it. But I mean, I think the biggest thing, like going back to what you said, your childhood was robbed. I have some happy memories of my childhood. I have some lovely memories, particularly being with my grandma and granddad.
Oh, good.
And my mum's family, although all a bit batshit. I don't know if I can say that.
We
not your family. You can say what you want.
Don't worry.
All a bit mad as a box of frogs, all of us.
I love that.
We're really very, very, we were all very, very close. And a few of us got together because, my grandma and granddad passed away. My mum's gone. My stepdad's gone. My birth father, I found out back in 2000, had passed away. So there's not that many of us left, but when we get together, we do discover quite a strong streak of things that we all have in common, which is nice, because we're all dotted all over the UK.
Wow.
So it's really nice to get together with them and realise that we're not alone. And the biggest revelation actually was that my birth father, was actually very nearly abusive to another family member.
Oh, really?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and it was a real revelation.
So how did you find out this information?
This was by talking. This was just by talking about the past and stuff. And it's amazing how much gets shut down when you're a child. And this is what I want to say to people. Listen to your children, please. Children do not make up things like this. They do not. Watch them. Listen to them. Tell them, use the proper names for the sexual organs and for the genitalia and for the private parts. Don't use silly names. Use proper names that your children know that they can use to tell you uncle such and such, or, maybe even auntie such and such, or, the scout leader mum, or whatever, because it's always people in positions of trust.
Yeah.
9 times out of 10. The majority of abuse doesn't happen by strangers. It happens by people who are known to you.
Who you know,
known to your child and are trusted. And when you talk about somebody in the family maybe, or somebody in the friend circle being a bit dodgy, know they're a bit dodgy. When you smell a rabbit and it's off, it's off. And keep your child away from them. It's simple.
Yeah.
I can't stress this enough. I really cannot. I know it's difficult if, my mum got us away from my dad, and I thank her for the rest of my life for that. She tried her best, I know she did. But I know it's difficult when you're caught up in a relationship with somebody and, that itself is abusive and you're scared of leaving.
Yeah.
What was your relationship like with your mum? Like, were you close?
Yes, but not always in a good way.
Okay.
As I've said before, my mum had her own issues. She had her own mental health issues that she never addressed, never dealt with. She had a very large, massive nervous breakdown when I was young. Oh, wow. I remember her going into hospital. She tried to commit suicide by taking a bunch of pills, and one of my aunties was there. And I remember my auntie walking her around the room and me saying, "What's wrong with mummy?" And then she went away, and that was it. And we were with my grandma and granddad.
How old were you at this point?
I think I must have been around about 4. I think it all coincided. It was all a very tumultuous time. Whether I was younger, I don't know. Such a lot of my childhood is mixed up in my memory, and I only really very clearly remember solid things from when I was around about 7. And before that, it's all flashes and...
well, your brain's not developed at that. It's a way of protecting you, isn't it? It's protected you from those memories.
Absolutely.
Which is what we can thank the brain for. But So I remember when we talked yesterday, you said a little bit, so going back to your first marriage, you also said so, because obviously you were quite young then. You said you were 18 when you had your first
we were 18
child.
when I married him. I was 18 when I married him, and he was only 19, bless him. We were both very young. It was my first very serious relationship when I met him.
Tell us a little bit about that, because you said yesterday there was some domestic abuse in your first relationship as well.
I'm not blaming him in any way, shape or form. I come from this childhood historic abuse. I'd also come from a very mixed up home where I'd had this very mixed relationship with my mum. We'd had awful arguments. I'd been bullied at school. I'd played truant from school. Even though I was a very bright child, I messed up my schooling because I felt so worthless. I'd got no joy in life at all. I wanted to die. Many occasions I wanted to. And quite a few occasions tried to commit suicide as well. Nearly succeeded on the second occasion.
Well, thank God you didn't.
I was about to say.
I think that now.
Yeah.
But I'd also, when I was 17, just before my 18th birthday, I'd gone to a party, and it was a lad I was kind of seeing, but not seriously. I was still very scared of men. But I'd liked him because we did a part-time job together at a very famous fast food restaurant. And myself and my friend had gone, and I was supposed to be staying at her house that evening. So we'd gone together to this party at this lad's house that I really liked, and I was kind of on-off seeing. And we were both given drinks. We were both, I think there was joints being passed around. And the last thing I remember is being given a drink, and the next thing I remember is waking up in a bed, and there was a man, didn't know who he was, and he was on top of me.
Oh,
and I was foggy. I was completely and utterly out of it. It was horrible. And I thought for many years that I had gotten drunk and passed out. But I think from counselling, what I discovered was, because the counsellor had said, you were probably drugged. Because most people who've come to me and described what you've described, where they felt foggy, where they felt like they can't fight back, where they felt like in and out of it, or they've woken up with it being done, have been drugged. And I think my drink was spiked, but my friend had left because I was in such a state, apparently. She said, you were passed out. And this guy whose flat it was, had put me on his bed. It wasn't him who was raping me. It was one of his friends.
So how old was this man then? So you said
he
you
was
were
in his early 20s. I was just short of 18. It was about a month before my 18th birthday. But I remember when I came round properly, that he'd got a flick knife, and when I looked at my foot, he'd actually carved a letter into my foot, and it was his surname. It was his first.
Are you fucking
letter.
joking?
No.
What the fuck?
No.
Oh my!
Because I went into the bathroom and saw that there was glass everywhere. I'd also got a cut to the back of my head, and I don't know. I think I was thrown against the mirror. Maybe, I don't know, in the bathroom for some reason or other. I don't know. All I do know is that I staggered out of there at about 5 o'clock in the morning. I walked to the nearest bus station, which was about 2 miles away. Got the bus home, and I'd wondered why people were looking at me on the bus. I mean, they were obviously, coming back from work or going to work. It was very early in the morning. And when I got back and got in through the door, my mum was waiting. And this is pre-mobile phones. So I'd, not been able to text or anything like that. We're talking about 1989. So she was worried sick because she obviously hadn't heard from me. And I said I was going to stay at Sue's, and she said, so you didn't? I said, no, I didn't. and she saw the state of me and said, "What's happened to you?" I said, "Mum, I think I've been raped."
Oh my God.
But I don't know, because I can't remember, because all I remember is that waking up and there was a man on top of me. I said, "But," and she looked at me, and my clothing was torn. I'd got vomit all down the front of me, which I'd not taken in my state. I'd not taken in anything about the state of myself. And when I undressed, she said the best thing you can do is just go and have a nice bath, and she drew me a bath. And I said, "Mum, should I tell the police?" And she said, "No, because they'll crucify you. You've been drinking, haven't you?" And I said, "No, Mum, I don't remember." I said, "I think I had a glass of cider. And then I was given a drink at the party, and I don't remember anything after this at all. The last thing I remember, I think, was having this drink and there being Holly, God, what was he called? The lead singer of Frankie Goes to Hollywood. And Mary Carno's, that song was on the stereo or something. That's what I remember last. And she said, "No, you need to just wash yourself now, and I'll make you a nice cup of tea, and you can go to bed and rest." And I knew, really, I mean, I scrubbed myself, but a couple of days later, I'd got bruising all around my neck. There was bruising all on the insides of my thighs. I was bleeding. And I got this letter W carved into my foot. And I was speaking to a couple of my college friends that I knew. There were a couple that were together, pair of girls that were together. And they were horrified and said, "You really need to go and tell the police." So they accompanied me to the police station about 3 days after.
Oh, thank God. Yeah.
I was there all day, around about 13 or 14 hours, giving my statements. And they would go over everything with a fine-tooth comb. And then I went to see the police surgeon. And the horrible thing was I was assigned a female police officer to accompany me to the police surgeon to be with me as a chaperone. She was actually worse to me than the police surgeon. The police surgeon, who was male, was lovely. Explained everything, every step of the way that he was going to do. When he did the swab inside me and he pulled it away, the female police officer said, "Oh my God, what's that?"
What?
Yeah. She was vile to me. She was the one who said, you young girls going out, getting tarted up, getting pissed, and then coming in and crying rape. And I actually felt disgusting about myself. I
hope she's fucking not working anymore. Like, sorry, I'm so angry for you.
I still to this day don't know what that was. That still makes me feel as though I was disgusting and dirty inside.
Why this upsets me so much. Why should you feel like you did anything wrong? If you want to go out and get absolutely bladdered and walk around with nipple tassels on, you have every freaking right to do that.
Yeah.
No one gets to take that away from you. And for you to then feel ashamed and like you are asking for it. Why? Oh my God, I'm so angry for you. I'm so sorry that you've been through this. This is,
yeah, it's pretty horrible. Did you, and then you do all this blooming crying and counselling. You think it's all gone.
No, listen.
But I do. I go to group counselling sessions still, you know. And you've got to be aware of other people, and you've got to give them time as well. You know, you can't kind of, and you can't keep crying about this stuff either. You've got to move on with your life, and I have a lovely life now. I really, really do.
But you've been through a lot.
But it is pretty rotten. I just want to say to anybody, you know, it's everybody's own choice as to whether they report something or not. But there are things in place now to ensure that you are looked after much better. You know, I had nothing but respect from the rest of the police force. Seriously, they did get him arrested. They did get him arrested.
I was just about to say, please tell me like who he was, and well, not who he was.
He was remanded in custody. He was for 6 weeks without bail. He was put into custody for 6 weeks. He was in prison for 6 weeks on remand. He was not allowed out for 6 weeks. Sadly, everything has to go through the CPS. They decide whether it's going to go to full court, whether it's going to be taken to trial. They decided that despite the photographic evidence, despite the knowledge that he had penetrated me, because there was signs of penetrative sex, despite the damage that he had done to me, I'd waited 3-4 days before reporting it. And
for fuck's sake.
because he was saying it was just rough sex, and he also had other friends who had been at the party who were still obviously smoking weed. They were still obviously drinking with the guy that whose party it was. A couple of them had said, we heard some screaming, we heard some noises, we heard bangs and everything, but we just assumed they were having a session. And he'd explained it off as rough sex.
And
she liked
got away with
sex.
it.
And so then he got out.
The evidence, unfortunately, was my word against his. It's a lot of people need to understand it isn't easy to get a conviction against somebody for rape. Please don't let this put anybody off. If you are planning to go and report a rape, know that you will get every ounce of support that there is available. There are people that will help you. And the police force now have more training, and you can have a representative from any number of the sexual violence charities that exist to help you. There will be somebody that will be with you. I don't want to put anybody off. This was my personal experience. There are other people's experiences where they have had some form of justice through the courts, and that's wonderful. To put it into context, when we were called in by the CID officer that was dealing with my case, he said, I've got a daughter your age. He said, my heart's breaking for you. I know that he did this to you. I know he did this to you. He said, we cannot do anything without the CPS say so, unfortunately, and we've had to drop the case. It's been thrown out. He said, if I can tell you that there was a 5-year-old child who also had their case heard the same day as yours, and that was also thrown out. So, the battle goes on. I'm constantly petitioning for, various changes in the law for justice. Because I couldn't get my personal justice, but it doesn't mean that I can't fight for somebody else to have theirs.
I mean, that's a very beautiful sentence you just said, and just fucking shows how strong and incredible you are, that they might have done this to you, but they've not taken away.
The sad thing that I've always carried around guilt-wise, the freaky thing, actually, I've got a very, very good friend I've known since I was 9, and she had gotten married quite young, and her husband, it was horrible. I'd gone around to their house, and it was after I'd had my son, so it was maybe 2 years later, and maybe 2 or 3 actually, and her husband had actually started to mention this friend who'd been around, and I can't remember what the context was, but he said, he's only just come out of prison. He said, he's always been a bit dodgy, we've never really liked him, have we? And my friend said, no, I don't really want him here, and now I found out what he did, what he was in prison for. I definitely don't want him here. I said, what was he in prison for? He raped somebody. And I was like, okay. And they said, he's from this certain area. I know alarm bells started to ring. Mm-hmm. And I said, what was his name? And they said his name, and it was him.
Jesus.
So he'd actually gone to prison after my case had been thrown out. He'd obviously done it to somebody else that he had been convicted for, and he had gone to prison, but he'd been let out pretty quickly for being a good boy. So,
I mean, the only way I'm trying to find like a silver lining there is that because he already had that against him on his record for you, that maybe that could have helped the next case and sent him away. I don't know if that's how it works, but
I think they're allowed to mention any previous convictions or any previous arrests only after they've been found guilty. As soon as they've been found guilty, then previous things can come into the fore for the judge to sentence. I'm not sure about that. My legal knowledge is not strong enough. I am trying to brush up on it, because what I'm trying to do
I don't know either
is
where
get
that
strong
stands.
enough to become a volunteer for survivors. And I will have to know quite a lot of the legal stuff so I can be there in case there's any legal things going on. I want to provide more help. This is the area I want to go into. But as I understand it, maybe after he was found guilty of the following rape, maybe they were allowed to mention he's been arrested before for this, but the conviction was, never came to fruition because it was thrown out. But the guilt you feel, I think the guilt I felt that I'd waited for some days, and then I thought, well, even if it had gone straight away, maybe they'd have still thrown it out.
Even still, though, you have to process it yourself. That's not...
Yeah, absolutely.
You can't just be like,
Absolutely.
I'll go right now. Sometimes it's so difficult, and people don't understand that when, people are like, why don't you just go straight to the police? Why don't you do this? And it's like, because until you're in it, and I don't ever want anyone to experience anything like that.
No,
but
God, no.
It's like, you don't know how your body's going to react. You don't know what to do with yourself.
No, you don't.
And then, like you said,
also people also say, well, did you scream? Did you shout? Did you fight back? Did you do this? Did you do that? It's not,
Well, for a
the
start, you were
reaction.
drugged, so no.
But even
know
if
what
you're
I
not
mean?
drugged,
Like-
the reaction, is
Some people freeze.
It's one of
some-
shock.
Yeah,
It's one
I
of
hear
And
a
if he
lot
had a
of-
knife, he's carved a letter into your foot.
Yeah.
You don't know what he's doing next. You don't know what... I mean, I've read somewhere, again, I try and read as much as I can, very similar to you, to keep myself up on these things. And unfortunately, the main thing you'll read is how not to get raped rather than how to not rape someone, which just does my head in.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
That's so fucking backwards. It's not
It
even
is.
funny.
I mean, I've had a conversation with my boyfriend and I've been like, did you ever at school get a policeman come in and talk about this? And he was like, no. And I'm like, oh, I got taught,
Yes.
don't have your headphones in, don't wear a ponytail because it's easier to grab, don't wear bright colours,
Yeah.
And he's like, nope. And I'm like, cool. Just shows the difference. But anywho, you just go, at what point in your brain are you meant to go, okay, if I scream, he might kill me.
Yeah.
He might, and I read somewhere that this is horrific, and I'm really hoping it's been thrown out, but someone had said, if you pretend to enjoy it, then they will stop.
Oh,
and
come
I
the
remember
fuck
reading
on.
that. Literally, I remember reading it and being like, at what point in your brain, at what, I mean, I've got acting training, and I know for a million % there is no way that I could do that. And it's just,
It's that thing as well, I've heard, that people go into, they have like an outer body thing to help them to protect themselves, and they just go, right, if I just take my mind somewhere else because this is happening. So if you're focusing on trying not to be so fucking traumatized, you're not going to scream. Like, it's like fight or flight. Until something happens that's like huge or traumatic, you don't know how your body's going to react.
You're right.
At all.
Completely.
You could say, people could say, oh, well, I'd have done this. When you hear people talk about if something happened, well, I'd have done this and I'd have done that. You don't know. I'm sorry, but you don't know.
No,
Until
you
you're in a
don't.
situation like that, you cannot judge anybody's
you
pure
don't.
reason. That's
also,
not okay.
You were so young when this happened, and like the first person you told, like your parent who you look up to as an adult, and you go, you understand adult life, and you're telling me to go have a bath, go to sleep, have a cup of tea.
Yeah.
You would, in that kind of vulnerable state,
would have
that's what
done
you're
it.
going to do.
Yeah.
You're not going to go, no, mum, I want to do this.
Yeah.
You just don't. You go with what you're being told by authority figures in your life.
This is it. And she was absolutely, while she was very loving on in the immediate aftermath, that evening she did go out with my stepdad and left me in the house on my own. And now thinking back to that, I was so scared that night. I was so scared. And also in the weeks that followed, I was traumatized completely. I wasn't sleeping. I wasn't eating. I dropped down to 7 stones. And I'm around 5'4", so it doesn't sound as though it's like dire, but it was. I was a bag of bones.
That's nothing. Yeah.
Dear God.
And then not long after that, I think about 3 weeks after that, I tried to kill myself, and I nearly succeeded. I'd taken well over. This is in the days where you weren't limited to buying only 2 packets of 16 paracetamol. You could buy bottles of 100. And then you can go and buy another bottle of 100. And I took nigh on nearly a full bottle of 100 paracetamol. Didn't tell anybody at all. Next day, started to feel very sick, was very sick. I was sick everywhere at college. And rushed me off to hospital. And my obviously my liver was pretty knackered. And they said basically to my mum they could give me an antidote to try and limit the amount of damage that the paracetamol would do, but they couldn't guarantee. And the next 24 hours were crucial. I'd either go into major organ failure or I'd live. I lived.
Oh God!
But I'm glad I didn't succeed. I really am.
So are we.
But with the knock-on effect, because I know you were talking about my first relationship. Well, the knock-on effect was the first real relationship that was only 6 months. Started only 6 months later. In December 1989, I met my first husband, my son's father. 3 months later, I was pregnant, and then by the following July, we were married. And we were very, very young. And he was a very good man, very good father. But there were arguments because I was damaged. I was traumatised. And there were arguments and there was violence. And it's not nice at all.
From both sides?
I would say I was mentally not very nice to him at times, shall I say. I'm going to admit to that. Yeah. I would push him to see how far I could push him. I was constantly getting us into issues with money because I wanted to try and spend the trauma away. I now know that I have borderline personality disorder, which is a horrible diagnosis because it makes you feel like there's something terribly wrong with you.
I've got a friend who's working through this currently, and it's heartbreaking to watch. So I do feel for you a lot.
One of the side effects, unfortunately, of this disorder are that you're not very good with money sometimes, and you do have an issue with impulsive behaviour. Yeah. And one of my impulsive behaviours was to try and spend. I mean, crikey, it's a good job we didn't have online shopping in those days because I'd have been awful. So it got to the point where he limited what he would give me in terms of money. But he was also very, I think he was scared himself of losing me. So he was very insecure, very possessive.
Right. So just not a good recipe sort of thing
not
with everything.
Really, no. So unfortunately, he was at times not very nice to me, but also I was not very nice to him. And when we separated, I left him, and I took my son with me, but I never stopped him from seeing my son, our son, because he was a very good dad. But he had, himself a lot of pain. And there was a lot of fear, and I ended up taking out a restraining order against him as far as I was concerned. So allowing him to see his son, but he wasn't allowed to come anywhere near me for a little while because he'd said some things, made some threats. They were all in upset and anger, and he's not this person at all. He's not the person he was towards me. Yeah. But I think everything that was with him was a side effect of what I'd gone through as a child and a side effect of having been raped 6 months previously, 7 months previously.
That's
when
not
I met him.
A lot of time, is it, to deal with it before going into your next?
No, it isn't. I
but you wouldn't know that.
A thing.
There was no, mental health. You couldn't get help for things like that, like counselling. So you wouldn't have known it's too soon because you hadn't dealt with this, like X, Y, and Z. So you wouldn't have known that it was a wrong decision to make. And
rape crisis existed back in those days, but I kind of felt bullied by my mum out of it because she didn't believe in anything like that. And she said her belief was that if you brushed it under a carpet and stayed quiet about it, that it would go away.
Fortunately, that's not how it works.
No. That was a theme then, though. I remember,
absolutely.
Like we've just said, even going back to what you said about being in schools and having discussions, but they'd separate I don't know if they did this to you, but the minute you said that, it reminded me that they used to separate the boys and girls.
Boys and the girls. Yeah.
And they used to take the boys
Absolutely.
for a talk, and the girls for a talk.
Yeah.
That, like, why? Because you're conditioning them to think differently to us instantly.
Yeah.
Like, get us in the same room talking. But then I remember, you know, even like, I don't know, the older generation of my family would be like, well, why are you having talks at school about this, that, and the other? Just get on with it. It's like, that it was never a thing then to talk about mental health. Like, I didn't know what domestic abuse was. I didn't really know what mental health was, because we never talked about it, unless the boys got that chat. I don't know, because they had a different one to us. But it shouldn't be that way. Like,
no,
it just baffles me when I hear all these things, and when my mum talks about stuff, and it's like, I feel like it wasn't that long ago for it not to be talked about. Like, or something
really
done
scary
about it. It's so scary, because it's so hard to change that now. It's really difficult to change it, but that's where we need to start, like, back with the schools. We need to get, you know, the young men and women and
absolutely
all genders
it does begin.
Get it in their brains.
It absolutely begins as children, you know.
Yeah, 100%.
That's where you're developing. That's what you learn.
Is very, very important. And I mean, I'm a Gen Xer. I am guilty of so many inappropriate uses of language over the years, you know, because we were taught that it was okay to say things.
Absolutely.
I don't mean in terms of, like, you know, in terms of violence or sexual violence or abuse, anything like that. I mean in terms of general. You know, the way the way that people would speak of gay people, the way people would speak of transgender people, the way people would speak of people of colour, of women, and it's still happening. But what's happening is the younger generations, who were often deemed as snowflakes for daring to try and buck the trend of unkindness, you know, daring to try and get people to think about the way that they speak about others. You know, they are kind of leading the way. And I'm not saying it's just young people, because I'm not young. I'm 51 in next month, you know. And
Still young, babe. Still young.
I've got friends I've got a beautiful friend who's in her 70s who actually delights in being called a snowflake, you know, and she's from the boomer generation.
Love that.
It's a constant evolving thing, in an evolution of the language we use. And I'm hoping
100%.
I really am hoping that the language we use around children, the respect for their own bodies, the respect for their own body autonomy and their privacy and their choices have to be recognised and approved of, especially as they get older. And, you know, we see so much slut shaming, and it's gone on in the last day or so with the Kim Kardashian wearing of the Marilyn Monroe dress.
The Met Ball,
I am a huge Marilyn Monroe fan. Do I believe that she should have worn that dress? Absolutely not. Not because she isn't worthy of wearing that dress, but because that dress is historically very
iconic.
Iconic.
Yeah,
fragile,
it should be like in a museum somewhere.
Marilyn. It was made especially for Marilyn, to her body. Should have been kept behind that glass in that museum.
Absolutely.
I agree.
Yes.
I agree. I agree with that. Have a replica made, because you've got the money.
She did for wearing the rest of the evening. But
why wear that? Yeah, so I'm with you with that.
My argument isn't with that. My argument is, we all know that she shouldn't have worn it. It shouldn't have been allowed. You know, people should have people who say no to them. It should be.
They don't know that word.
It's really
They're too powerful.
Boundaries.
Yeah.
Some of these celebrities just don't have people that put boundaries in
nobody
place.
dare say no to them.
God, no.
But boundaries are very important, as I've learned as I've gotten older.
Same.
But, you know, the reason why I don't like some of the language that's been involved is there's been a lot of slut shaming and body shaming going on for that lady.
100%.
You know,
100%.
what she did in the past, what her choices were as far as making a tape or whatever, is her choice. We don't need to slut shame her for that.
No.
Absolutely not.
We don't need to talk about her body as being disgusting or fat, and we don't need to shame her for that. We also don't need a celebrity to tell young women or young girls, this is the way you do it. You have to drastically diet. to change your body
God,
shape.
no. Yeah, over it.
To
so
fit
there's
into
a
a
number
dress.
of things.
Yeah.
A number of things. But then at the same note, what disgusted me is all this airtime was given to this, when on the same day you've got a historic case that is threatening to be overturned.
Yep.
Where it will remove women's autonomy, their body autonomy. And again,
100%.
In Washington. Yeah,
There's another area.
yeah.
But no one's posting
talking about that.
Go
No.
on social media and it is just the dress, the dress, the
Exactly.
dress. And then occasionally you'll see a little post and you go, oh, what's that? Oh, there's no information.
Absolutely.
The dress. Yeah.
Yeah.
Before we let you go, because we have chatted your ear off, I'm so sorry.
I think it's the other way
this
around. I
afternoon.
think I've chatted your ears off.
No.
God, no.
It's been
Tell
so
us-
powerful, so thank you.
Yeah, it's been incredible. You guys can't see us on Zoom, but me and Farah have just been like, A, crying, and then B, with our mouths just wide open.
Yeah.
Tell us a bit about what you're up to now and the counselling and how you're finding life now
Yeah.
on the kind of other side.
As I touched on, for many years I pushed it under the carpet. I did the typical thing if it's too painful to deal with. And actually what I did for a few years was turn not daily to alcohol, but like I've said, if I was ever out or I was ever doing anything and alcohol was available, I would happily indulge, and I'd start off feeling happy, but then become quite emotional very, very quickly.
Yeah.
And make stupid choices that hurt, that hurt people I cared about an awful lot. But I've knocked on the head completely. I mean, over the last 4 years, I've had a bit of a love-hate relationship with it and cut it back. And I kept cutting it back, and I'd spend months without it. And then realise, what am I doing? Just string the months together and don't do it at all, because then I won't have the relapses in terms of the mental health relapses that I was having. And then when I got diagnosed with borderline personality disorder and possibly being on the spectrum as well, it was a big revelation as far as not blaming myself anymore for how I was feeling and how I was behaving, and taking some responsibility for my mental health and doing everything that I could to make sure that I was healthy in terms of eating well. Exercise has been a great, big, massive thing for me. I love to run.
Oh, good for you.
And I set myself goals. And it can be quite scary running as a woman, because
Yeah.
I
Yes,
have
that's
had
the thing.
encounters whilst running. Again, don't want to put any woman off running if you feel scared to run on your own. I like running on my own. I like my own peace and quiet, my own brain, kind of having the time to de-stress and, and declutter. But there are running clubs in every single town, city, up and down the country. There are running clubs. There are female-only running clubs.
I just don't like running because I feel silly on my own. So I just be like, I'll join, and just so I don't have to run on my own, because I feel like an idiot every time a car goes past.
Again, it doesn't have to be running, but finding something for you that makes you feel good.
Yeah, and I found my
inside.
thing as well. It
But
does really
just
help
for you,
Yeah.
that nobody else can have and nobody else can take away from you, and it's your time. And I'm privileged in the respect of my children have grown up. Our youngest is very mildly disabled, so does need a little bit of care, and is still at home. The eldest is still at home as well, but he's leaving soon. He's going to buy his own first home.
Good for him.
But I'm limited to a certain extent by, this sounds ridiculous, but my youngest baby is my dog.
Love
That
that.
does not sound
We
ridiculous
feel
to
you.
us.
I know exactly what you mean.
And he was very, very unwell last year, nearly died. Had a massive operation, and because he needs daily care, even though he's all right, he's only got 1/3 of his stomach left, so he has to have small meals often. But he's your typical border collie. He's neurotic and absolutely, completely full of energy and everything. So we have to kind of monitor him very closely. So
he's not aware that he's only got one part of his stomach.
No.
He's just living his best
So
life.
when
Love
hubby's
that.
away, I'm the only one who's here to look after him and sort of see to a daughter and stuff like that. So that's difficult at times. It can be a bit restricted, but I know that people out there might have young children, might have illness themselves to battle with, or family with illness, jobs. I'm lucky in the respect that my husband earns a very good wage, and I can afford to take and leave, the jobs that I can and can't and don't want to do.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah, great.
So I know I'm very privileged in that way. But whatever time you can scrabble for yourself, do it and do something wonderful. So that's what I do now.
Yeah.
I do a lot of running. I try and run most days when my knees will let me. But at the moment, I'm still singing. During lockdowns, I did daily tune sessions, which were musical theatre tunes at first, and then I did Ladies of the 60s.
Love that.
It was just mainly to give myself a focus, and also just to keep the old vocal cords in check, and also to maybe, hopefully, bring a little bit of entertainment and something for people out there who were, going through. It was a rough time, wasn't it, for all of us?
Oh my God,
God, it was awful.
I don't even think I've still dealt with that. That's going to be that'll come out at some point.
I mean, I think it's changed us all. I mean, I'm just very grateful I didn't lose anybody through COVID, but I do know people who did.
Yeah, same.
And my heart goes out to them. I mean, I was very lucky. Presently, at the moment, I'm building up to try and gig a little bit more again, get my confidence back to gig a little bit more. Yeah. I've got nice shows coming up. My husband and I, we're making plans for him eventually finishing what he does. He teaches abroad in a private British school, and we're making plans for him to come home permanently eventually.
Oh, that would be lovely.
And I want to open my own cafe. I've wanted to do it for a long time. I'm going to name it after my nan. It's going to be a haven. It's going to be a safe space. It's going to be a writer's space, a reader's space, a dog walker's paradise. I've got all these plans.
Great.
Yeah, absolutely. All nice.
Do you
humans.
need some more singers? We'll be there.
Nice, we're absolutely planning to have music nights.
Singers
and
dogs,
sorts.
we're there.
Absolutely,
we are there.
Might not be able to pay very much. It might be a bit of a look, doing it for the passion of it with cake and coffee and whatever else.
Creamy and cake.
And a little bit of pay besides,
on the cake, and I'm sold on the coffee. So
we're planning for so much eventually. But at the moment, I'm still very much caught up in my own singing. I've been very, very lucky, really. Particularly with doing a Shirley Bassey tribute. It's taken me all over the world. It's kind of opened doors for me that weren't open.
Her show is
before.
incredible. She's amazing.
Jesus, good for you, girl.
So that's been really, really nice. And also being somebody else on stage is pretty nice because you get to throw off this anxious, no confidence person.
and love an alter ego.
Put on a wig and a few sequins and become somebody else, which is lovely. And
so, did you say you're doing your counselling?
I am.
Are you training? What were you telling me about?
Hoping to start my training in November.
Okay, yeah,
that's incredible.
I'm going to see. It'll be on a voluntary basis, so I basically will give as much as I can give. I'm hoping it can be one day a week at least that I can give. Just knowing, because I spent so many years not talking about what I've gone through, and I know that if anybody that knows me kind of vaguely or as an acquaintance or follows me in terms of the singing, I know that maybe they'll be very, very shocked by what they might hear because I don't talk about it. And maybe some of my family are going to be shocked as well because I've not really spoken about much of it with them. But what I'm hoping to remove the stigma. There shouldn't be a stigma.
Nope.
These are things that were done to me. And whilst some of my reactions to what was done to me have been my choices and weren't always the healthiest for myself and those I love, I've come to terms with that. They've come to terms with that. We've dealt with it. We've moved forward. And I just want people to know I've actually got a really nice life now. I miss my husband, but I've got a lovely family. I've got the most beautiful friends you could ask for. I've got stunning friends. And I mean, friends I could call at 3 o'clock in the morning and say, and they have done. They have been there.
We feel you because that's me and that.
Yeah.
It's just so beautiful to hear because, sorry, I'm getting upset talking about that. It's just hearing what you've been through and then you just sentence is
I'm not
stunning.
alone. I'm not the only person. This is what I'm saying. Yeah. When I started to go to group counselling, without giving away anything that those ladies and girls have been through, my story is not unique. And I have to say, unfortunately, and I said this on the phone to Farah yesterday, unfortunately, when you've been through one form of abuse, your self-worth gets battered.
Yeah.
You don't value yourself. You don't make the best choices. You believe that you are not worthy of the best things in life. So you accept and you tolerate so much nonsense. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
And it took me a long, long time till I was 50 years of age last year to forgive myself for some of the choices I've made. And some of the things that I'm angry with myself at times for allowing the treatment from some people to hurt me. And I'm not just on about emotional, romantic relationships now. I'm on about some friendships I've had.
Yeah.
That haven't been the healthiest on either side. That have been mutually toxic. But sadly, I have had to say goodbye to some people in my life.
We do. We have to. Me and Nat, weirdly enough, I won't say too much, have had that discussion recently.
The past couple of days we've been talking about this. Yeah,
it's horrible.
You have to let go of some things that, like you said, hurt you with some people. Whatever's toxic, we've got to. The further along our journey of healing, we have to let those go because we're past that now.
You do. And when you let go, you have to do it with a completely open heart as well that wishes anybody that you let go well. You can't 100%. Hold on to bitterness.
No.
You can't. You can't hold on to anything. There's nothing in this life. There's nobody in this life. There's nothing in this life that owes you one thing.
No.
And when you go back to when you said you must feel like, like your childhood was gone, that it was robbed, to a certain extent, yes. I'm never, ever going to get back that time. But what I do have is now, and that's what I want people to know, is that now, doesn't matter how old you are, doesn't matter. You can be in your 80s. You can still go for counselling, or you can still move forward. You can still... I've forgiven my father for what he did. Wow. And I've forgiven...
That's big.
I've forgiven the rapist as well. I'm not a born-again Christian because I was in the Christian faith when I was younger. And my faith... People can find faith in whatever that they want to. I don't. It doesn't bother me if somebody else is agnostic or atheist or Muslim or, a Buddhist. My faith is Christianity. I don't impose it on anybody else. But I found an awful lot of comfort in my faith. Mm-hmm. Other people find comfort in other things. My one big thing, as I say to people, is make sure you come at anything you find faith in, anything that you do. To ease trauma, make sure it's rooted in health, make sure it's rooted in something that is going to make you feel better. And it doesn't matter what anybody else says. If anybody's against you doing something that's good for you, you have to move forward. And if you have to leave them behind, you do that. If anybody uses toxic language towards you and makes you feel anything less than you are, you've got to do this. You've got to try and put yourself first. And it's a horrible thing and it's a selfish thing to a certain extent. But it's what you have to do. And I can promise, even though I've cried on this today, I can promise anybody that there is life after
Crying's
violence
good.
Or abuse.
Crying's a good thing.
Crying's good. Yeah.
It shows we're human and it shows we have a heart and a soul. And you, my God, right now I'm crying.
You were doing so well then. Yeah.
Could you see me? I was like, don't cry.
I saw your lip wobble.
I know. You are a true inspiration. I have nothing else to say.
Not. I'm not holding on card.
No, you are, honestly. I felt like I was in a counselling session then. I think that's why, because you really hit home then. So
yeah,
I am in awe of your strength and you are an inspiration. So thank you so much.
And I'm so glad you found peace in your life. And I'm so sorry these things have happened to you, but I'm so happy for you. Like, I got upset when you were saying like how happy you are, because I was just like, that's it. That's what it took a while. You've been through so much, but you're there and this is your life.
Yeah.
It's no one else's. So, mate, you're a fucking queen.
Thank you.
Queen. We love you. Fucking love you.
Thank you, Rachel, so much.
Love you both too. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much.
Wow.
I'm...
Yeah.
Well, that woman is, like I've said, an inspiration. Queen. I'm just not going to stop saying it because her strength and power to overcome the things that have happened to her in her life is out of this world. Like, she deserves a freaking medal and the rest.
They're things that no one should ever have experienced. She's been through them all.
Literally, yeah.
And yet she, obviously listeners, you can't see Zoom, but she had a smile on her face most of that time. She was so warm. And when we got on Zoom and she was like, what you guys are doing is amazing. And she was so complimentary. And you just go, you're a queen. Yeah. And you're amazing. So...
And now she wants to help people. And she's doing a counselling. It's like... It's so incredible. She's incredible.
Because that's the thing I was like trying to say. Like, she could easily just be bitter and angry that she's been through this, and she could be self-destructive, and she could just stop. And yet instead, she's taking this hurt and this pain she's been through to make others' lives better.
Mm-hmm. And to help herself. She's helping herself. Like, she's looking after herself. Oh my God, yeah. I'm in pieces.
Well, thank you guys for listening to this episode. We know it's a bit of a longer one, but we don't want to ever cut anyone's story down.
No,
we want
it's
you guys
important.
to hear the full.
Her story's important.
Yeah. This isn't just a podcast where we're discussing like the news or like, I don't know.
No.
Cake. I mean, that would be a great podcast, but sure. These are big stories. So thank you guys so much for coming back. Please rate and subscribe. Please share. Yeah. Let's make this message as loud as we can.
Please talk to us. Write in. Yeah. takebackthebeattour@gmail.com.
Woo! And tickets for our tour are on sale now.
Yes, they are.
So before we wrap this up, I've got a win of the week, and I don't think you know this.
Yeah, no. You basically demanded that this week was yours. I didn't have much of a choice. If you're listening, she was like, "I have the win of the week." I was like, "Okay, calm down."
Just wait. So, Scary Spice, Mel B.
What? What are you going to do?
She's got an MBE.
Oh my God, really? Sorry, Mike. Yeah. Sorry, listeners.
Sorry, listeners. For services to domestic violence victims.
Oh, wow.
And she's quoted saying, this is for all of the women facing domestic abuse.
Yes, bitch. Love it.
So,
yes.
Absolute queen. Proud of you.
Well done.
Girl power to the fucking max.
That is.
So I told you it's a good win of the week.
Okay, you deserve that one to the fullest.
Yes. And she's an ambassador for Women's Aid, who is our official partner. So... I saw this news and I was like, oh my God, yes. People are making movement. People are talking about this. So yeah.
Oh, Mel B, yes. Happy. Yay.
And she looked fabulous. I'll show you the picture. She looked absolutely gorgeous.
Of course she did. She's Mel B. She's fucking Scary Spice.
She's our queen.
She is a queen. That's the thing though. How incredible is that? Like, they invented girl power practically, and now she's like... I mean? And what? Like, look at me and my award. Do you know what I mean?
I love her.
Love it.
Love her.
Love it.
Right. Well, there you go. That's it. And done. Diddle-dun, done.
Diddle-dun.
Boom. Thank you guys so much. We will see you again next week.
Bye, guys. Love you.
Bye. Love you.
Take back the beat.
We do apologise if anyone was triggered by any of the dialogue we used today. We are still learning and we are only just beginning to talk about our own experiences. We're aware that trigger warnings are completely different for everybody, so please bear with us. We love you all. We also want to hear your experiences. If there's anything you'd like to share with us, any stories, anything you are happy to discuss on this podcast, you can stay anonymous if you would like. Please send us an email at takebackthebeattour@gmail.com. That's takebackthebeattour@gmail.com. You can also find us on social media at Take Back the Beat. Thanks, guys. We love you all.